My guest today is Ruth Burr Reedy, Vice President of Strategy at UpBuild. I first heard of Ruth when she was working at Moz as their lead SEO. Veteran SEOs know that Moz used to be called SEOmoz. Ruth took on the daunting challenge of overseeing the SEO for that rebrand. She's now living in Oklahoma, and I start our conversation asking about her journey to UpBuild. Ruth is an in-demand speaker who's presented at all the major industry conferences, including Ungagged, Mozcon, SMX, and State of Search, to name just a few. In an industry that is very analytical, what I like most about Ruth is that her content is rich with empathy. She's extremely good at challenging our industry to be more human. I'm definitely going to ask her about her most popular saying. It's called show business, not show friends. She's written brilliantly about burnout, remote work, and running a profitable business with low client to consultant ratios. Grab something cold to drink and join Ruth and me for a conversation about avoiding employee churn, developing company culture with a 100% remote workforce, and what it was like growing up as a theater kid. Ruth, welcome to Suds and Search. How you doing?
Hi, I'm good. Thanks for having me.
It's great to see you. I am really trying to ship beer to my friends who come on here. As it turns out, it's a lot harder to ship beer anywhere than I thought, but really hard to ship it in Oklahoma. So I'm really sorry.
Hardest places to ship beer to. So don't feel bad.
I'm really sorry to leave you empty-handed. I'll have to owe you one, maybe if we see each other at a conference or something like that.
I'll take you up on that.
I want to give you a virtual cheers. I'm drinking from our friends at Beguile. I drink their beers a lot. They're right outside the back door of our office. So I try and promote them as much as I can. I know you have a beer of choice as well.
I do. I'm drinking the golden one from Anthem Brewing, which is one of my favorite local Oklahoma breweries. It is a Belgian-style golden ale.
All right. Well, virtual cheers. Thanks for coming on.
Cheers.
I have a lot of interesting things to talk to you about. I remember the first time
I'm using glass because I'm a fancy lady.
There you go. Go for it. I first heard of you when you were at Moz, and you were the head of SEO there. And then you've left. Now you live in Oklahoma. Tell me about how you went from Moz to where you are now.
Sure. So I was working at Moz. I was the head of SEO there for about 2 years. And my big thing that I did there was I spearheaded the SEO side of the migration from SEOmoz.org to Moz.com, which was a giant project.
Sure.
And I'm really proud of how it went. So that was great. I mean, Moz was wonderful. You know, it's my dream job, obviously. But I had met the man who's now my husband, and he was in grad school. And when he graduated with his, getting his PhD, and he actually, his advisor reached out to him and was like, "Oh, I know these people who are starting this research center at the University of Oklahoma. They haven't posted the job listing yet, but they're looking for somebody who does what you do. Do you want to have a conversation with them?" And I was like, "Well, that's how you get jobs. We're to Oklahoma, aren't we?" And we did. So he's been at OU now. So we've been here almost 7 years. We moved in 2013. So after Moz, I worked remotely for Moz for about 6 months. And just at the time, they weren't really, it's one thing when your whole business is working remotely, when you have one person working remotely and then 100 people in the same office, that's tough. So ended up working for an agency here in Oklahoma for a couple of years. And then about 4 years ago, almost exactly, I was talking to Mike Arneson, who I've known through the industry for years and years and years. He tweeted out a job opportunity for this director of strategy position at UpBuild, which was the agency he founded. He basically had reached the point that I think a lot of agency founders reach, where being the SEO or being the CEO was getting in the way of him running the team. Running the business and running the team becomes two people's jobs, and he's becoming a bottleneck. So he tweeted out this job opportunity, and I'm a good friend. If my friends are hiring, I'll always share that with my networks, and I hit retweet and was like, wait, I want that job. So I DM'd him and I was like, should we have a conversation about this? And he was like, yeah. And that was 4 years ago. So as the director and now as the vice president of strategy at UpBuild, I'm basically like the XO at UpBuild. I'm the Commander Riker of UpBuild. So, plugging in with Mike on growing the business, running the business. I'm ultimately responsible for client success, so sort of figuring out long-term client strategy, managing the team, things like that. And it's the best job I've ever had.
That's awesome. I'm really a big fan of how you guys run the business. You're all remote. Full disclosure, we are not like 3 employees work remote, and then in normal times we're just all in the office.
Mm-hmm.
What advice can you give to someone like me about remote work? It's like I think it's going to come for all of us now. I think it's the new way, right?
I mean, I think post-COVID, like that's a genie that's not going back in the bottle. I think a lot of businesses are going to figure out that remote work can be really great. Certainly for UpBuild, a big part of why we're able to do the things that we do is that we're remote. Just even from a practical like business standpoint, our overhead is super low. We're not paying rent. We're not, buying printer paper or toner or, phones or anything like that. I look at the P&L every day, and like the biggest line item on there is salary, and our people are our product. So I think that's appropriate. But in terms of like managing a remote workforce, one thing that I'm really seeing a lot of people talk about is that there is this like sort of fear and angst, like you've been in the same place, you can look around and know what the people around you are doing. And when people work from home, a lot of people, especially like managers, are kind of asking, well, how do I know people are doing their work? What if people are working from home and they're just, watching movies all day? And, the answer that I have to that is, people are doing their work because the work is getting done. That's, if you don't have a way to ascertain whether or not the work is getting done, that's not remote work's problem. That's a you problem.
Yeah. I think another obvious challenge would be like, how do you build like team camaraderie and core values and these things? I've noticed on even on your company blog, you're putting sort of integrity questions and stuff about how to have values in your organization. How do you do that with a remote workforce? I think that's my biggest trepidation, is that we would lose track of some of those things.
Yeah, absolutely. And UpBuild is a hugely values-driven company. It's the most sincerely values-driven company I've ever worked for. And that takes a lot of intentionality. And certainly like for me at UpBuild in the last 4 years, company culture has been one of my huge initiatives. Because like, how does it feel? Like, how does it feel to work here? What is the experience of working here when there's no office, when everybody's day-to-day is different? I think part of the answer of that is hiring. So like hiring for value fit, like not even culture fit, because I feel like if you say culture fit, what you really mean is hiring other people who are just like you. And that there's a lot of sort of inherent bias that can go into that, but hiring for those values. We just hired people. Like it takes us a minimum of 2 months to hire a person. Like we take it super seriously and it takes a long time. So by the time somebody comes on, we're pretty confident that they share in those values. But then we also do a lot, like when you're in an office, a lot of that stuff just kind of happens. Those conversations, being around each other, that like social element, that just happens. When you're remote, you have to make it happen. You have to be intentional.
Yeah.
So we do a lot with that. We have team meetings twice a week via Zoom. All of our meetings, we don't, with a few exceptions, like we have clients who hate video calls. So fine, we'll get on like an audio call, but like all of our calls with each other, it's all video. We're all on Slack all day, every day. Every Monday in Slack, it's Media Monday, and somebody shares a video or a song or a picture that they're really into. Every Wednesday on Slack, it's Water Cooler Wednesday, and I ask some kind of question that everybody answers when we talk about. So we get a lot. And then we also borrowed this idea from Buffer. Buffer is sort of a pioneer in fully remote workforce space. One thing that they do that I really like that we've been doing at UpBuild for a long time is pair calls. So the way that it works at UpBuild is every week, twice a week, you have you're assigned another person for that week, and you have 2 15-minute calls with them over the course of the week where you're not allowed to work. So you have just like a standing meeting, like every Tuesday and Thursday at 11:30 is pair calls, and you look up who you've been assigned to that week, and you just have a conversation with them, and it can't be about work.
Yeah, I love those ideas. That's great. And the other thing I was thinking that I really respect about what you did, we feel like we have a really low client to consultant ratio at Search Lab. Mm-hmm. You guys have an even lower ratio than we do. How do you run a profitable business with only 4 clients per consultant? Is that right still? Is that still current?
Yep. Being part of the answer of that is we're expensive.
Okay, I could imagine. Yeah,
we're the best, and we charge accordingly. So the sort of niche that UpBuild is designed to fill is, an enterprise level company. They often have their own marketing team, and like a very, very, very small business, they often don't need a full-time digital marketing person. There are a lot of kind of medium-sized business, or maybe they have enough work and enough budget to hire a full-time SEO, but they can't find anybody, or they just don't quite, they have like $25,000 a year, and that's like not really enough to like hire and retain a world-class SEO. But they're like so close. And so we kind of plug in there. So our engagements are anywhere from 32 to 50, even up to like 70 hours a month per client. So you really are getting, a fourth of this person's time minimum every month just spent on you. And what's great about, a few things are great about that. One is it allows us to have like really deep client relationships and really embed ourselves in their organizations in a way that we couldn't do with like 5 or 10 hours a month. Two, it means that we can go really deep on like SEO projects. I feel like at agencies where you have 10, 12, 15 clients, there's all this stuff that like, if I had time to do this, I would love to do it. But with the amount of time I have per client per month, it would take me half a year. And like, that's not valuable. I can't not produce anything for them in 6 months and then be like, ta-da, even though that would benefit them. So like having that time to go deep, we do great work for them. We're able to get results faster. And then, they see the value in it and retain us for longer.
Yeah, I would imagine you wrote a blog post I read before this about avoiding burnout. Mm-hmm. And so I've interviewed people here in Chicago where they'll have 35 clients. Like you're like, how do you even give them any time?
The answer is you don't, and you hope they don't set it.
Yeah, it's some dishonesty to that. Like where you just have like 35 clients. Like what are you really able to do as a human being for 35 clients, even if you worked all day and night?
Yeah,
I would imagine your burnout rate for your people isn't too bad. I think you would probably have good employee retention with clients. That's it. Yeah.
So UpBuild is 5 years old, and we have yet to have a single senior marketing strategist churn out.
No way. Wow.
Like our junior people, like you hire somebody for an entry-level role, you train them up. Sometimes they work for you a couple of years and realize this isn't what they want to do with their lives. There's not a lot you can do about that. But like our senior level people, we have yet to have anyone quit in 5 years.
Wow. Yeah. What other advice do you have about avoiding consultant burnout? Just making sure that they stay. We want our people to stay forever, as long as possible.
Yeah. I think that like lower client ratio is part of it. One of the things that I just over the course of my career, like managing people, looking at time tracking software, I think you have to keep in mind that somebody's going to spend about a half an hour of unbillable time for every hour of billable time that they spend.
Right.
Just going to meetings and answering email and going to the bathroom and just like existing in life, transitioning, half an hour between meetings, that's time's not going to be billable. What are you going to do?
Right.
And so like keeping that in mind that like if somebody's working for you 40 hours a week, that's not 160 available billable hours. Mm-hmm. It's more like 110. So, there's a maximum to the amount of hours you can put on somebody. Another thing, so like, I think a lot of people that I've talked to in this industry have kind of like agency trauma where they come onto an agency, it's day one, they have 15 clients, they receive almost no training, and also no one has time to talk to them. So they ask a question, people are like, oh, stop bothering me. And you get this kind of mindset where you're like, if I make a mistake, if I don't know what I'm doing, I can't reveal that to anyone. I have to fix it by myself before anybody notices. And that can like, from a management perspective, like the idea that people will be doing that kind of terrifies me. Like people are making mistakes and I don't even know about it. Like, right. So creating an environment where people like, if I can't help you, if I don't know there's a problem, creating an environment where people can come to you and say like, I messed this up. What do I do? Or even just like, I have all of this stuff and I don't think I'm going to get it all done by the end of the month, knowing that they can come to their manager and be like, okay, let's reprioritize. What can wait? What can be delegated? What can somebody else do? And knowing that your answer to them isn't going to be like, well, guess you're working overtime. Like, guess the your life, your spouse and your child and your activities and your physical and mental health don't matter. To me, your employer, like that's when people churn. Like, why should they give you that much of their lives? There's no way to pay them enough for that.
Yeah, you're you're fond of this phrase, or came up with this phrase, it's show business, not show friends. What does that mean to you?
Oh man, how much time do you have? So the main thing with it's called show business, it's not show friends, is there's sort of, you can look at it as an employer or as an employee. As an employer, what it's show business, not show friends means to me is that like, I want to create a place where people like to work, both like ethically as a person that feels right to me, but also practically from a business standpoint. It's so much cheaper to retain employees than it is to hire new ones. So much cheaper. So if you don't care about that, if you don't care about people as people, care about numbers. But anyway, your employees don't owe you more than what you pay them for. So like, you are their employer, they are your employee. Their loyalty to you should be predicated on this business arrangement. So I'm really wary of companies where they're like, we're a family. We're like a family. Like, no, because I've never gotten laid off from my family.
Yeah.
And like, you know, my family has no bearing on like my
there's no such thing as furloughing a family member, you know.
Yeah. So, and you see, especially with entrepreneurs and especially like early stage employees, this idea of like, I gave you like, you owe this to the business. Like, we're all plugging in and we're going to work 80-hour weeks. And, you know, like, people do the job because you pay them, and that's okay. Like, we can acknowledge that it's a business arrangement. So like, not expecting people to show you more loyalty than is appropriate from any other business relationship, I think is part of it. And as an employee, the other side of that is like, and this is something like I've convinced people to quit their job over this. Like, if you want to leave your job, but you feel bad because the busy season's coming up, or they invested a lot of time in training you, or like, it's really going to put your manager in a bind. Like, if the situation was reversed, they would fire you. They might feel bad about it, but they would do it because it's called show business, not show friends. So like, I don't think that anyone should hold it against themselves or anybody else that they work with for making a decision that is right for their lives and their career, is what it boils down to.
Wow. I feel like there's probably a lot of stories back in your career that helped you come up with this passion. So you've had experience working as an in-house SEO. Mm-hmm. Now you're on the agency side. Mm-hmm. What considerations should businesses have in terms of hiring in-house versus hiring agency? What are kind of your go-to pros and cons?
Yeah, absolutely. I actually just wrote a blog post about this. So if you have the budget to hire a full-time SEO, and you know, you have the work for them to do, like, having an in-house SEO is great because, you know, no matter how great your agency is and how much time they spend with you, like, this is something that, you know, I'm sure as an agency side person, you can empathize with. Like, your clients have meetings that you're not at, and things that you might have input on, but you don't know about it because you're not there. Yes. And like, there's no substitute for having somebody in the building, on the ground, in those meetings, and in those like informal conversations. Like, you're walking past the dev team and they're like, oh, by the way, like, we're all set to migrate to the new server. And you're like, hang on. No one talked to me about that.
Right.
Like, there's no substitute for that. I mean, the other side of that, though, is that in-house SEOs have to do a lot to. Are you frozen, or are you just holding really still?
Oh, I'm maybe just holding really still. Oh, am I? Uh-oh.
Oh, wait. Maybe I
think you're frozen on my screen. Is that my error? What's going on?
Hello.
We're back.
All right.
Panicked there for a second, but no, you're back.
I'm back.
It was such a good answer too. I'm devastated. Hopefully we can get back on track.
What I was saying is that the other side of that is that, like, if you have an in-house SEO, like, and I've experienced this as an in-house SEO, like, if I don't know how to do it, no one at the company knows how to do it.
Yes, right.
And so, like, I think if you are going to hire somebody in-house, part of the budgetary planning that you should be thinking about is, how am I regularly getting this person to conferences and to trainings, and how am I exposing them to other SEOs so that they can continue to learn their craft?
Great point.
like as an in-house SEO, like there's definitely been times when people are like, hey, in an hour, can you come talk to this meeting about this thing? And I'm like, I guess I'm spending the next hour Googling faceted navigation so that I know enough about it to talk about it in this meeting. So like with an agency, you get that deeper bench. And you get, people from like different levels of experience. And I think a lot of times with an agency, like in-house SEOs can be hard to retain. Because, somebody with 2 years of SEO experience can make 50 grand. Somebody with 3 years of SEO experience can make 75 grand. Are you prepared to give this person a $25,000 raise?
Right.
Probably not. So the nice thing about an agency is that, you can retain the work. And even if, a lot of agencies, like there's so much churn that you don't get that institutional knowledge, but like you can be working with the same person. And even if that person leaves, the overall company ideally should still have an understanding of like what they've done for you so far and like what the future is. So like you sort of are offloading the problem of employee churn onto the agency, which I think can be really helpful. Mm-hmm. Like a lot of like SEO is a seller's market. I know even now with the economy in the toilet, I know very few SEOs who are looking for work.
Right.
Compared to the amount of people who are looking to hire an SEO. So like that I think is a huge, like I know people who have been trying to hire an in-house SEO literally for years.
Yeah.
And they just can't find anybody. And that's where like an agency can really come in.
I get it. Okay. So let me back up. You're a well-known presenter and speaker. We would be, we maybe I know there's a lot of virtual conferences, but we might be in speaker season right now. Mm-hmm. What would you be presenting on?
I was supposed to present at Ungagged in Portland. And I think I am presenting at their virtual conference in August. I'll be presenting there in August 2021. I'll be presenting at State of Search in Dallas in October, which hopefully...
We'll meet each other in person. That's
yeah,
great.
are you
I'll be speaking there. I'll be speaking there, yeah.
And Greg will be there.
Yes, so that's where Greg and I met.
That's not where we met. Greg and I met at... No, we did. We met at State of Search because I went and spoke for Moz.
Awesome. Yeah. So that might be the first time we meet in person. So that'd be great.
Wow. I love that. See, that's my favorite thing is like you have all these internet friends and you can finally meet them in person.
That's right. That's right. Do you have topics that you would have been presenting on at Ungagged or at State of Search, or are you still thinking about it?
So at Ungagged, I was going to do sort of a longer and more in-depth presentation on a topic that I did a Whiteboard Friday about last summer, which is about natural language processing and content strategy.
Okay.
So sort of like how you can write content that is easier for a machine to understand in ways that also make it easier for a person to understand.
Interesting.
And sort of some tools and some, sort of Python scripts and things like that you can use to kind of pull out the entities in your content and then look at whether or not your content is actually about the thing that you think it's about, because people are really bad at that.
Yeah. What are they doing wrong? It's a great topic. What are the common things they're doing wrong?
Well, one thing that I see a lot, especially with like a keyword-driven content strategy, is you're like, write this post about this keyword, but like the person writing it actually kind of wants to write about something else. So you horn it in the beginning and then kind of pivot over to their
actual I know topic. This so well. Yes.
Yes.
I know that one very well. Yes.
And then the other thing I see a lot is people are I see this especially with B2B businesses. They're so in their own head about what their product is and does that they forget that they still need to use language that people who don't work for them understand. And you're like, oh, it's a business workflow solutions tool. And you're like, but what does it do?
Right, I love that.
When I open it up, what happens?
Oh, I can't wait to listen. I have, I'm going to run out of time, but I want to give you some rapid fire questions from Greg Gifford.
Love Greg.
All right. First question. What was it like being a theater kid?
It was great. It was awesome. It was so fun all the time. Lots of drama in the drama department. But yeah.
What is your background? You were like a theater major or something?
I have a BA in theater. Yeah.
Wow. That plays well in SEO, I would think.
Surprisingly, yes. Theater teaches you empathy, which I think is really important from like a client and account management standpoint. And obviously, like my presentation skills have served me very well over the course of my career. Yeah, I mean, really, what happened is about 6 months before I graduated, I realized that I am not the adventurous free spirit that I was trying to tell myself that I was, and that I really did want stability and like health insurance and like a regular, like a salary.
Health insurance is good. Yeah, health insurance is good.
Yeah. And like the people I know who are like making in theater, they're amazing and they work super hard all the time, way harder than I work. And I work pretty hard. Like you got to want it and hustle hard. And I realized that I just didn't want it enough.
Awesome. Next question. What is a nice dinner with Steve Hammer like?
Oh my gosh. A nice dinner with Steve Hammer is like, A of all, you better decide ahead of time whether or not you're splitting the check because it's not cheap. But like Steve, like what I like about Steve is he's a foodie, but he doesn't have to control the menu. He will if everyone agrees that he should. Like he's happy to do that. But he's also just like, look at the menu. Like, what do we want? Like, what do we want? Should we get some of this? Sure. Some of this? Sure. And same with the wine list. Like he'll take the wine list, or if somebody else is like, oh, I'll pick the wine, he's fine with that. Like he's not somebody who has to like control the fine dining experience. Really, like Steve just wants to go out and like eat some really good food and have a nice time. And if you want to come, great. And if not, that's cool. And then everything else can be. So like, I know people who are foodies who basically like you just buckle up and they run the evening. Steve is a lot more laid back, but he's also very much like, this is what I'm doing. You can come or not.
Oh, he's the best. He was like, we were drinking a really highfalutin beer on his episode, and he described it so well. And I remember like one point I was like, you are good. You really are good at this thing.
Person, yeah.
Yeah. You're going to know this question is from Greg. Who is the better conference live tweeter, you or Greg?
I mean, I like to think it's me.
I'm rooting for you.
Oh, thank you.
I'm rooting for you. Yeah.
Like one thing that Greg does that I need to get better about is he'll do like sort of a double return in between the speaker's name and the hashtag. And that sort of makes the tweet take up more space on the page, which I think helps with his like overall engagement. And I forget to do that a lot. But I mean, like a lot of times, like Greg and I are sitting next to each other, half live tweeting and half retweeting the other person. So like, I think the real answer is the best conference live tweeter is when Greg and I get to go to a conference together and sit together.
Combo is the best. Yeah. All right. Well, awesome. Well, thank you so much for doing this. I really had fun, and it's been great to meet all of you guys. And I guess I'll see you at State of Search here in October.
Yeah.
Right.
Track everything with Google Tag Manager is going to be my topic there.
Awesome. I'm looking forward to it.
What are you speaking of?
Local SEO strategies. So I'll be back talking about my favorite topics. So it's I had to think about it for a second because it's been a minute since I pushed. But yeah, it's local SEO strategies.
Awesome.
All right. Well, let's sign off. I'm going to give you one more virtual cheers. Thank you so much for coming on, Ruth.
Thanks for having me.
I'll talk to you again soon.
Bye.